Welcome to OLC 4.0. This is term 1A. Today we're looking at class 13. We're going to be working on assignment 17 and 18 and continue our work on adjectives. And I am Jillian Percy. Here is our contact info. If you want to call in today while I'm talking on the radio, 1-800-465-7144. If you want to get my email, jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, capital G, capital P-E-R-C-Y, space, capital W-A-H-S-A. The previous classes are stored and recorded on YouTube, not only from this term, but also from the previous term. So if you are way past assignment 18, you can always go back and look at those. Term 2A and 2B are good choices for that. If you want to call me when I'm not in the studio, the office phone number is 1-800-667-3703, and the toll-free number is, the extension is 2211. When you are sending in assignments, please don't send it to my email. Send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. That way the secretary has it in the system and she can always pull it up in case anything happens. Please always include your full name, course name, assignment number and name on every assignment. If the assignment asks for a rough and a good draft of a writing assignment, please send them both in at the same time and label them clearly so I know which one I'm marking. They often have different marking schemes, different rubrics, so it's important to know which one is which. So if you go to my YouTube channel, this is what you'll see. If you go to playlists and click on playlists, then this is the first playlist that will come up. This is the course I'm doing this term, and it should have all the assignments that we've done so far. Now, sometimes there's like a day delay while I'm trying to upload things because that isn't an instantaneous process. And then if you're wanting to look at previous terms, you can look at 2B or 2A. There are also the other courses that I taught last year. So 4E is on here, and then I think 3E, but we're not doing 3E this year. But here's my stuff if you want to take a look at it. Okay, our learning goals for today. By the end of today's class and assignments, I will be able to write complete and correct sentences, including how to use adjectives, how to punctuate, and what order to use them in. I will be able to make connections between personal experiences and text content to help consolidate understanding. I will use appropriate strategies to make inferences about texts, such as asking questions. I will use appropriate strategies to monitor comprehension when reading, such as asking questions, kind of our focus. So yesterday, I thought I had covered everything, and I didn't realize I still had a little bit of information on assignment 16 on this class. So I'm just going to kind of give you a brief little bit on that. I think I initially had created it as a 3-step assignment, but then I was afraid that was a bit too much, so I kind of condensed it, and here is it. So yesterday we worked on our opening, which is in the black, and then we talked about our reasons and our examples that support the reason. So each color, like red is my first reason plus example, blue is my second reason plus example, and then third is my third reason plus example. And then when I get to black again, it's me writing my closing. So you can see this. Okay. Now, hopefully that you understood that for assignment 16, that you take it out of the organizer and put it in. I also at this point kind of read through it and figured out whether I wanted to add some things. It kind of depends a little bit. Some people add lots of details when they're doing the organizer. Some people don't add quite as much. So then it's a good idea to do it here. It sort of depends which one you are. So the other thing is, a lot of times students just aren't really sure what we're asking when I say revise your paragraphs. They kind of say things like, well, I mean, that's what I had in mind to write. That's just all I know. But there's always things that you can do to kind of make the writing sound a little more interesting. You can make revisions by adding, rearranging, or subtracting paragraphs. In this case, because we're only writing a paragraph, that's not really crucial. You can add, rearrange, or subtract sentences, including things like joining them to other sentences. Remember how we were talking about making compound and complex sentences? We can add more examples, like you should have at least one example, but you can add more examples. You could also add more descriptive details to your example through adjective, adverb words, phrases, clauses. You can make revisions by adding transition words and phrases at the beginning of a sentence. You can also go through and change repetitive or ordinary words into more interesting words by using synonyms. And you can check your grammar and conventions for common mistakes, obviously. That one we should always do before you're handing something in. Okay. So here I just kind of have some of the examples, and then you can see I sort of went through and wrote some things. So just kind of review, here is my opening. I believe that it is appropriate to ban limited numbers of books because some books are written to actively encourage others to hate, to do harm, or to believe lies. However, we must always be mindful that this can be a slippery slope that leads to the right of free speech being damaged for many others. First of all, there are some books that are written solely to show others how to harm people, such as books about how to build homemade bombs, often used by terrorists as a cheap way to hurt others. Second of all, some malicious books have been written to encourage people to hate another group of people deliberately. For example, Adolf Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, in which his hatred for Jewish people was paraded and encouraged others to hate them as well. In addition, many books have been written that encourage hatred of Muslims. Third of all, some books have been written that are outright lies, such as books that deliberately slander and defame others by telling falsehoods about famous people, such as celebrities and politicians. As well, there are even books that fabricate freely, enormously about major historical events, such as the Holocaust. In closing, although there are some possible dangers to banning books, there are also dangers to allowing books to be freely circulated that encourage people to believe lies, hate others, to kill them, or to rewrite important historical events. So this has got the revisions, right? And then as always, you would check for your convention errors. Capitalization, forgetting to capitalize the word I, forgetting to capitalize the beginning of a sentence. And then sometimes people will add a capital letter after a comma when they don't need it. Usage, always remember that your nouns, especially your singular nouns, should have a, an, or the. Plural nouns could have the, but they wouldn't use a or an because by nature those mean like one. Always check for subject-verb agreement. So you want to make sure if the subject is plural, then the verb is plural. If the subject is singular, then the verb should be singular as well. Other types of punctuation, sentences must end with a period or question marks and exclamation points, but they never end with a comma, okay? Commas can also not be used to join two sentences by themselves. They must include a conjunction. Apostrophes are used in contractions to show that a letter is missing, or it can be used with an S to show belonging. So I could say the word like can't, and that shows that something is missing. If I write, I'm gonna, sorry, take that out just to make it a little bit easier. The bird's cries, that's showing that the birds are the one doing the crying. Here, the apostrophe is after the S because the birds are plural. If it was only one bird, I would put the apostrophe right here between the D and the S. And then spelling, you can always check your spelling. Again, the major ones are two, and two, and there, and there. Those are the ones that get spelled incorrectly most often. Okay, so moving on to our next assignments. Right. I can write complete incorrect sentences, including how to use adjectives, how to punctuate them, their order, and where they are placed in a sentence. We discussed adjectives yesterday. They describe nouns or pronouns. They describe or modify people, places, things, and ideas. They can describe age, color, size, shape, purpose, number, origins, material, quality, or opinions. However, one of the funny things about adjectives in English is that they always come in a certain order in a sentence. Let me show you what I mean. So this is considered, I believe, the order of adjectives, which they sometimes kind of humorously refer to as the royal order of adjectives. So first is determiners, right? Remember yesterday we talked about how some people think of these as a special type of adjective. Other people think of these as a separate type. Either way, they always come first. Then any kind of numbers or quantity words. Then we would use our opinions, then size, then age, then shape, then color, origin, material, and then those special purpose adjectives. Remember how sometimes we call them compound nouns like hound dog, pickup truck, vampire bat? Okay. So Grammar is always different from language to language. It's one thing we've talked about this year. If you grew up speaking English, then this order becomes instinctive. You just have to follow it automatically. However, other languages have other rules of order for adjectives or less strict rules about it. In that case, the order has to be learned, as there just isn't any really particular rhyme or logical reason why we use this order. However, if the order gets mixed up, it will often just sound wrong to people, even if they can't put into words why it sounds wrong. So here's an example. I saw the green huge house. It should be I saw the huge green house. Now why is, oh, it's acting as if green and house are two, I mean like a greenhouse? No, I mean the house that is painted green. I saw the silk French beautiful cloth. Sounds funny. The first time I read that, I almost couldn't make sense of it. It was so confusing to me. I saw the beautiful French silk cloth. Okay, so you have to kind of pay attention to this if that's an issue. Now, there is a spot where we don't follow the rules. And this one is apparently a rule that actually crosses language. It has to do with how we make sounds in our mouth for all humans. And there's an exact name, but it's really complicated, so I just kind of left it. Words that are spelled the same except for the vowel, we always say the ones with certain vowels first. So I'll say an I vowel before I say an A, before I say an O. That's why we always say tic-tac-toe. We never say toe-tack-tick. Other examples of that would be flip-flop, ping-pong, tick-tock, crisscross, hip-hop, bing-bang. It also shows up where the long E or that double E comes before the O sound. So teeter-totter, bebop. Now, in Big Bad Wolf, technically big and bad aren't exactly the same, but because they have that first initial consonant that is the same, we tend to instinctively sort of invert it. Apparently, some of the vowels we say at the front of our mouth, and we instinctively want to say those ones before we say the ones at the back of the mouth. It isn't something you have to memorize. I'm just kind of pointing it out because sometimes people will notice that little detail and be like, well, why doesn't this follow that detail? And this is the reason why. The other thing is, sometimes people will break the order on purpose because they want to stress a particular adjective or a quality about the noun. Like if I was talking to somebody and I wanted them to brain, please make sure you brain the wooden large bottle, not the glass large bottle. I would be emphasizing that, and so then it might go first, even though that isn't naturally where it would go. The other thing is sometimes some words have multiple meanings, and so that can change where that word might go. Wooden can mean a type of material, right? A material made out of wood. It can also mean a type of facial expression, which could be considered a quality or an opinion of something. Like if I say he's got a wooden expression, I mean like his face is very stiff and it's maybe not showing very much feelings. So if I say the old wooden mask hung on the wall, well, the age of old comes before the material of wood. But if I say the wooden old face barely moved as he cried silently, I'm talking about the quality of his face rather than what it's made of. So then it comes first. So that's another spot where it might be a little bit confusing. Do we use commas with adjectives or not? Generally, two adjectives that come from the same category should always have a comma between them because essentially they've become like a list. Like the disgusting, comma, smelly pear should get thrown away. Now I don't need one after the second adjective, it just goes right into the noun. Technically, adjectives from different categories like age versus material don't need a comma between them. So I could say the delicious yellow Welsh cheese had just arrived at the shop. Having said that, I must say personally, I've gotten used to seeing the commas and I would probably use them anyways. This is the technical rule though. I would not mark anyone wrong for putting the commas there. Heads up. Okay, there are two main places where you'll find adjectives in a sentence. The first place is right in front of the noun that we're describing. The noun can be in the subject, like the old red wagon. Wagon is our subject. Or it could be in the predicate, beside the little wooden shed. Okay. The second place is after a state of being verb. Remember we talked about is, am, was, were? And it's because the whole point of the sentence is describing the condition of the whatever the subject is, which usually means we're using adjectives. The doctor was helpful and kind. Now, I could rewrite that as the helpful, kind doctor and then go on to tell something about it. But in this sentence, they've chosen to make how we're describing him the most important part of the sentence, and that's how they've put it. The hospital is enormous and well planned. Now, this one is important because if you see, I'm going to change the doctor to he. Okay. Now, we don't usually put an adjective in front of a pronoun. I wouldn't say helpful he. It just sounds weird in English, right? This is one spot where I would definitely need to put the adjectives after that verb. Okay. He was helpful and kind. Helpful and kind are describing the person that's in the he. Sometimes when you have this kind of format, you have to be careful because not all of those words might be adjectives. Some of them might be an adverb helping to modify the adjective. I say the woods were very dark. Dark is my adjective. Very is an adverb describing dark. And again, this isn't super important other than it's good to know when you're trying to fix things, what's the correct way for things to sound. So adjectives are a very useful tool. They can give you extra information about a noun or a pronoun. They can help you picture it more clearly or understand it more thoroughly or make your opinion on that noun clear. But like most things, you do need to they use them in moderation. Like even though there's 10 adjective categories, it would be a very strange sentence if you actually used all 10 categories per noun. Commonly, I would say most times you might see 2 or 3 adjectives. More than that, and it begins to sound a bit odd, maybe almost like you're trying to be deliberately silly or humorous. So if I look at these really common nouns, I could think of some adjectives that we could use to create a more vivid picture of for the readers. So dog is super general. What do I mean? And what am I thinking of? I initially want to add things like size, like it's a little dog. I could also add color, a little brown dog, right? So I'm giving you a better picture of what it looks like. House. For whatever reason, I also want to do size for house. I don't know if I should, but I'm going to. Big. I could do color, but I could also describe its age. Like I could say big, ancient. Am I spelling that right? Yep. Big, ancient house, right? I could describe its quality, worn down ancient house. Tree, okay, I could talk about, let me see, a dying old tree. Bear, young, cute. Oh, see, there we go. Cute, young bear. Okay, you see what I'm saying? And it just kind of helps add a little bit more information to a sentence. Okay, so we are looking at 17 and 18. For 17, these are the things we're working on. I can make connections between personal experiences and text content to consolidate understanding. I can use appropriate strategies to make inferences about texts, such as asking questions. I can use appropriate strategies to monitor comprehension when reading, such as asking questions. Okay. And the reason is because this assignment is all about asking questions. If you've been following along and you said you were doing this a little bit last year, I did not change this assignment. I thought about it, but I really did not change anything, okay? It's worth, both 17 and 18 together are worth 18. Assignment 17 alone is basically worth 8 marks, okay? We want to go back to the novel, okay? First of all, you're going to need to make sure you've read chapter 2 and chapter 3 in order to do this. For this one, you are going to be like the teacher asking the questions. Now, sometimes people get confused and just figure that means they can ask whatever question they want. But no, sorry, you have to use the actual questions that they list, okay? So here's an example. Originally, they said where. And somebody finished it with, where did Peter take Jimmy in the fall? And my answer was Peter wanted to take Jimmy moose hunting, page 13. Okay. The other ones are question 2, how do you think? And see that little dot, dot, dot? That means you got to finish the question. You can't, there's nothing to answer right now. How do you think isn't asking anything yet. It's going to, but you have to finish it. Then you give me your answer. If you were in Jimmy's shoes, what? Dot, dot, dot. Question 4, do you think that Teresa, dot, dot, dot. Question 5, what? Dot, dot, dot. Okay, so wide open here. Initially, the first time I looked at this assignment, I was like, I don't understand. They're not asking anything. And then I realized I hadn't read carefully enough, right? You've got to create your own sentence. But the catch is it has to start with the words that they provided. Then you also have to be able to answer the question you made it, okay? So I wanted to tackle about how to write questions in general. Good question versus bad question. Sometimes teachers will say there's no good, bad questions. And in general, if you're asking for information, no. But for this assignment, there are some bad questions. And that would be ones that you can't really answer because I'm marking your answer. So if there's nothing to say, don't ask it. If I say what will happen at the end of the novel, that's kind of a bad question because we're only in chapter 3. You can't answer that yet. We don't know what's going to happen at the end of the novel. And if you've gone ahead, you still have to like stick to the rules and only stick to what you know in chapter 3, okay? If I said, how do you think Teresa will get Jimmy back? That's a funny question. It's a bad question because we don't know for sure if Teresa's going to get Jimmy back. So we're making an assumption there that might not be true. So that one doesn't work. Good questions have a specific answer that I can find in chapter 2 or 3. If I say, what did this character say to this other character about an event? And I would have to name the event and name the characters, obviously. I could tell you specifically what they said. If I said, why do you think this character felt sad about, and then I name an event, I could go back in the novel and find out why they feel that way. Okay, so just a quick review of question words and what information they're requesting. If you're using the word who, it means you're looking for the name of a person or an organization. What is usually a summary of details or what is, was, or will be happening. When, it could be the time, like in hours, like 2 o'clock. It could also be things like days, months, seasons, or years. Where is a location? It could be something specific, like 123 Front Road, or it could be something more general, like the hill or the river, or even something big, like the ocean or Russia. Why is asking for a reason or an explanation for something that has happened or that somebody wants to have happen. And how is asking about what way do we do it? Has it been done? In which case, how did they do it? What are the steps or procedures? And that's one of the trickiest ones somehow. Now, these question phrases sort of imply different things. These phrases here that I've listed are ones that they're inviting you to state an opinion. They want you to make a connection to your life and use your experiences and your ideas to interpret what's going on in the novel. Do you think? Think is a keyword. Do you believe? Believe's another keyword. What is your opinion? Here it's making it very obvious, but sometimes people don't really realize that believe and think are opinion words as well. What do you feel about? Or sometimes explain how you feel about. So those are all asking for your opinion on something that's occurring or might occur. Okay, these ones are asking you to explain the steps or the procedures in order to learn how to do something. How would you explain the steps to? List the steps to accomplish. Order the events to achieve. Put in sequence the actions that are needed to. Describe the steps to. These are basically all saying the exact same thing, okay? Sometimes there are phrases that are asking you to look at 2 different people or events or books, actions, objects, and compare them. When you're asking to compare, you're trying to think about how something is alike, like it's similar, or also how it's different. Sometimes they will specifically use the word contrast to make sure you understand that they can be different as well. But it's one of those funny words where if they're asking compare, usually they are still wanting to know alike and different at once. They don't have to add the word contrast. It's just kind of understood. So they might say compare and contrast, and then they would list what they want you to compare and contrast. Or they might phrase it like compare this word versus this word. Contrast how this person handled it versus that person. Use a Venn diagram to describe the two characters and their similarities or differences. You know, Venn diagrams, that's one where they have the two circles that overlap like wedding rings. That's always being used to compare. How are these events or people similar or different? And again, I'm just trying to show you that these can be asked in different words, but they're basically all have the same concept of what they want you to do. Okay. List the page number on your answer. This is really important because it's part of learning how to cite your sources, which is something we get into a little bit more near the end of the course, and which you will certainly get into if you're doing like grade 12 courses and even some of the grade 11 courses, all right? It helps you avoid plagiarism, and it gives the reader or your teacher a way to kind of check, oh, hey, maybe I don't remember it as clearly as you do. Maybe I need to check and go, oh, okay, yeah, I see what they're saying. So when you're asking and answering questions directly from the book, there should be evidence in the text. In other words, something that actually happened to support your answer. And that means usually it can be found on a specific page. So here's an example I made up from chapter 1. How does Jimmy feel about returning to Green Star Lake? Actually, I think we used that already. Jimmy feels nervous about returning to his home community. I think that is because he remembers how the chief and council wanted him out of the community for breaking into the band office and trying to burn the building down. So page 1, I'm telling you where you can find the spot about him being nervous. How to create a question. How do you think? So this word is, they want you to ask a question where the reader is going to have to give an opinion or make maybe a prediction about how something's going to happen. You could be asking about somebody's choices or decisions, like, how do you think this choice to do something, whatever it is, be specific, is going to change this other thing? You could be talking about somebody's actions or behaviors. How do you think this person's actions is going to affect an upcoming event or a relationship? Or you could be talking about possible ways to solve a problem. How do you think this person could get out of, and then mention whatever situation we're talking about? So let me give you an example from a popular movie so you can see what I mean. If you watch the Barbie movie, how do you think Ken might try to impress Barbie? How do you think Barbie could let Ken know she just wants to be friends? How do you think Barbie's life might change now that she has become real? Now, none of these are things you're going to find directly in the novel, although you might get a hint. Like if Barbie had said, "Oh, I've always wanted to be with a man who is rich." Okay, well then maybe Ken could impress Barbie by being rich, right? So there might be a clue that you used to make your question, in which case put it down or in your answer. What are some places in chapter 2 or 3 where the reader might be able to use their imagination or their experiences to suggest possibilities or make predictions about upcoming character, actions, feelings, and choices? And then question 3. This is sometimes confusing to people. It says, if you were in Jimmy's shoes, what? And they want you to finish this. So first of all, they're asking you to imagine that you yourself are Jimmy. And at some sort of important time, maybe when he's got to make a decision, maybe when he just made a big mistake, maybe when somebody is treating him badly, maybe when something bad has happened, maybe when he wants to change something. So don't forget, you're going to have to answer the question as well. So if you put something in here, it should relate to chapter 2 and 3, and then you need to be willing to answer the question. Don't ask a question that you're not willing to answer, okay? Because that's half your marks. So for example, if you were in the detective's shoes, what would you do now that another murder has occurred? If you were in the girlfriend's shoes, what would you do after you found another girl's outfit at your boyfriend's house? If you were in the crook's shoes, what would you do after your partner ran away and left you in the hands of the cops? So here you're looking for imagination, creativity, maybe a little bit of connections to your own life, okay? Do you think that Teresa, this is question number 4. This is another clue that the word think, it's asking for your opinion. It could be a prediction or maybe your opinion on what Teresa should do or what she might be feeling towards somebody or what she might be feeling about herself or maybe an opinion on what Teresa might think about something. Again, some more examples. Do you think that the hero will stay with this girl? Do you think the mom should change how she acts towards her son? Do you think that the friend is going to change now that something terrible has happened? Do you think that the soldier is going to return to the war? Do you think that the woman is going to leave her husband? These kind of questions don't have any right answer. Like I might give one answer and you might have a completely different opinion. I'm not worried about whether your idea matches my idea. I'm just worried that you can explain your idea. That's what I'm looking for is that you can explain your ideas, right? You need to use clues though, people's words or actions. So if there were two characters that have been fighting ever since the book began and calling each other names and hurting each other, it would be weird to suddenly say, well, I think these two people are in love. Well, really? Based on what? You need to be able to give me some examples of their words or actions that make your opinion make sense. Okay, so that is the one kind of trick for this. Okay, so let's say a question is asking whether somebody loves them or not. You can't just take a wild guess and just go, well, if I were in the shoes, you have to think about what's going on in the book. And here's an example of where the first time one person is noticing one part of what's going on, and the second time someone is noticing a different part. And that happens all the times, right? And again, that's totally valid. So on page 15, he gives her flowers to apologize for being mean, which I think is one sign he loves her. On page 30, he chooses to stay and help her rather than go out drinking, which shows me that he loves her. Or maybe you think the opposite. No, I don't think he loves her because on page 20, when she says she loves him, he doesn't say anything back to her. As well, on page 25, he starts flirting with another girl the moment she walks away, which I don't think he would do if he really loved her. Now, these are not about any particular book, and I'm just giving you an example of how different people would notice different clues, okay? And then last question, this one is so open-ended. They're just putting what. However, remember we talked about how what is kind of a factual question? It's usually looking for specific information or specific details about an event. So things like this might be like what happened when or what happened after. What did this person want this other person to do? What was going on at what was the plan? You're asking for specific details. These are ones where you're really not looking for opinions. You're looking for facts you can find in the text, okay? All right, so that's 17. Now we're looking at assignment 18. So this is a little bit different assignment than what we had last year. I actually moved one of the assignments around because there was a journal we did last year that I thought came a little bit too soon in the unit. So this is about learning. It's worth 15 marks. You should have just read chapter 1, 2, and 3 and done some reflecting. And your job is to identify the behaviors and the attitudes that you need for yourself to promote your own learning. And you're going to write 3 paragraphs based on the questions below. Each paragraph needs to have at least 5 sentences in length. Use the information in the sections below to help you organize each response. I want to point out they're talking about 5 sentences, not 5 lines. So I should be looking for my periods. So for example, 1 period, that's 1 sentence, 2 periods, 2 sentences, 3 is 3 sentences, 4, and then 5. Okay, so I know that. I can't just use the line because some people might write really long sentences and some people might write really short. So just using the line is not an accurate way. You have to actually count your sentences. Okay, so for paragraph 1, it asks you, in order to promote your own learning, that is, to help yourself learn, you must be an active participant. What does that mean to you in with regard to this course? Do you feel that you are an active participant? Explain why you feel that you are or are not an active participant in this course. Include any difficulties you may be experiencing, and also any ways you feel your teacher may be able to help you participate more actively. So I'm aware some people are in situations where you may not have great internet, or you are working two jobs or whatever, where you can't actually like join in the course. Okay. So it's okay. It's okay to say, like, I don't feel like I'm being active, and here's the reason why. You're not getting graded down for your content. I'm just making sure that you have content and you've thought about this. Okay. So paragraph 2, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in your ability to improve your literacy skills, reading, writing, speaking? Comment on any barriers you feel you may come across on your way to try and improve them. And be sure to talk about how your teacher can help you feel confident in your ability to improve. This is what I want to point out. Some people are pretty confident in their reading, but not necessarily confident in their writing. So it's okay to say, well, hey, I feel this way about reading, but this way about writing, and talk about different solutions because they aren't the same issue, right? Paragraph 3. In order to promote your own learning, you have to be persistent or determined, and you have to practice your skills. You also need to be willing to reflect on your learning process and learn from your mistakes. Use the ideas in the preceding paragraph to talk about your own persistence, practice habits, willingness to reflect, and learn from your mistakes in this course. And then this is the marking rubric for Journal 18, okay? I'm going paragraph by paragraph. I won't do this for most journals, but I'm breaking it down into this very, very specific examples so you have kind of more of a general idea. So 1 mark for a sentence stating that you are or aren't an active participant, or giving me sort of a general opening sentence. Then 1 mark for giving me examples of how you are or aren't an active participant. Things like doing assignments, watching videos, joining the Zoom class, calling me or messaging me. 2 marks for discussing any difficulties or how a teacher might help, and 1 mark where I'm looking for complete sentences. Okay. Paragraph 2, 1 mark for a general opening sentence, 2 marks for giving a number rating and discussing your confidence or lack of confidence, 1 mark for discussing any barriers or how the teacher can help, 1 mark for complete sentences. And then paragraph 3, 1 mark for a sentence discussing your persistence and determination or a general opening sentence, 1 mark for a sentence discussing your practice habits, 1 mark for a sentence discussing your willingness to reflect and learn, 1 mark for a sentence on any topic about your learning, and then 1 mark for complete sentences. So if you'll notice, over the course of this, there are 3 possible marks for writing in complete sentences. And we have been talking a lot, really every single day, about complete sentences because it is still the most common issue I see with people's writing. Okay. A lot of people focus on spelling, but spelling is just not generally that big of an issue. But an incomplete sentence that I don't understand is way more important. Okay. So when you get your final essay done, you might have it like this. It might say assignment number 18, then you'd have 1 paragraph. Then you want to leave a space. If you run everything all together, it's not written in paragraphs. You have to leave me a space. Then paragraph 2 on the next topic, then leave me a space, and then paragraph 3. So if you're on the computer, that's usually pretty easy. If you're writing, physically leave me a line or 2, skip those lines, and then go down and then do your next paragraph, okay? Quick review of paragraph format. We've talked about this a lot. It is the hamburger format, and it is like up top is your opening, and at the bottom, that is your close, and in the middle are all your examples and your details and all the good, interesting stuff, right? But it does need a good opener, and it does need a good closer. This is the most important one because I find people forget it. Most people remember to do an opening, but they forget the closing, okay? You're restating the same thing as the opening, but in different words. You might put a little bit of a twist on it. So how do we apply all this information about paragraph? So one key aspect is that it opens with a specific opening sentence, and it should be a broad introduction to all the details of the paragraph that you want to talk about. So if you look at the description of each paragraph, think about what's the big idea they're getting at here. And so for paragraph 1, they even made it bold, active participant. That's the big idea they want you to talk about. And all those other questions are really meant to help you flesh out some details to explain why you are or are not being an active participant in the course. So an appropriate opening sentence might be something like, I am developing my abilities to be an active participant in this course. You don't have to use that exact thing. I'm just kind of giving you an example of how an opening sentence might sound. Okay, remember that each paragraph is supposed to be at least 5 sentences. I think I originally had 6. So it should not be shorter than 5, but you can go over. Keep in mind also that 5 very simple or basic sentences might not convey very much information, whereas 5 compound or complex sentences could convey almost twice as much information because you are connecting the 2 clauses together. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you what I mean. Take a look. Without even reading, you can immediately see I don't even have half the information. So if I was reading these, normally this one, as long as it's written in the same level, is probably going to get more information and higher marks. So I'm not going to read, I've got about 10 minutes, we'll see. I have made a lot of progress on my journey towards health, period. I have tried to develop the habit of daily movement, period. I try to only eat at meal times, period. As well, I am trying to get at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep at night. I call my friends and family on a weekly basis to talk. These things take bravery to do. I am trying to treat myself with the same love I show others. Okay, so these are all pretty simple, straightforward sentences, and there's nothing wrong with them. Okay, they're solid. But if I want to take my writing up a notch, I can add more details or use compound and complex sentences. I feel I've made a lot of progress on my journey towards better health with the help of the teachings on love and bravery. First, I've tried to develop the habit of daily movement and I've begun tracking my daily steps. So there's a compound sentence. Next, I've been making a real effort to eat only at scheduled meal times rather than snacking throughout the day like I used to do. That's that would be a complex sentence. As well, I am trying to get at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep at night, although I have some difficulty with getting to bed on time. Another complex sentence. I hate talking on the phone, but I get up my courage and reach out to friends and family on a weekly basis to talk. It's another complex sentence. So here's how I can add so much more information by adding in these little details, okay? Oh yeah, and we talked about a good paragraph should have a good closing sentence. It might restate the major points in a concise way. It might draw an overall conclusion, or it might share your feelings. Just kind of a quick, did I have this here? Hang on a second, I grabbed something. Okay, so here they're even kind of showing you, they aren't using the word hamburger, but I still think it's a great visual. But they've got the topic sentence. Social media overuse has given rise to several negative consequences for individuals, relationships, and society at large. And then they've got all their details, but then they go back to this idea and they're just restating it in a different way. In light of these facts, unchecked proliferation, which means like a growing birth, I guess, of social media must be critically examined because it negatively impacts individual people and society as a whole. This is really just saying the same thing. Okay. So that's an example of what you'd be doing with a concluding sentence. And then you would go on to topic or paragraph number 2. This one, the big idea is trying to talk about how much confidence you have in your ability to improve your literacy skills. You may have lots of confidence. That's great. Explain why you feel confident. You may have very little confidence. That's okay too. Just to tell me why you don't feel very confident. And then if you have any ideas on how I might be able to help you, this is the place to suggest those ideas, right? Because I don't know. Sometimes people have very specific things of like, hey, it would help if we could talk once a week. Okay, sure. That's great. Let's do that. So an appropriate opening sentence might be something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, comma, my confidence level about improving my literacy skills is around a 7. And then I would go in and explain all the details about why I say I feel so confident. Okay. Then looking at paragraph number 3, This one was kind of tricky because they mentioned so many different things. But I think the big thing here is promoting your own learning. So, like, how will you help yourself learn? And they give some different possibilities: being persistent, practicing, reflecting on your work, learning from your mistakes. That gives you a lot of ideas to fill up the details. Okay. Talk about how you're persistent, talk about how you could practice, talk about how you could reflect. All those kind of things would easily give you 5 sentences. Okay. An appropriate opening sentence might be something like, I will be promoting my learning in several ways. And then you would go on to tell me all the ways you're planning to promote your learning. Okay. Write those paragraphs first and stay focused. Don't just sit down and write whatever you think about. Make sure it's on topic because that will get you much better marks. Okay. Once you've got that, revise them a little bit. Read each one out loud. Does it make sense? Have you forgotten words? Do you need to add some more details? Did you stay on topic in each paragraph? This is huge. I will be looking for this. And did I write at least 5 sentences for each paragraph? Again, also huge. Please make sure you've got that. Did I start repeating my sentences or words? Can I find a different way or something new to say? Okay. This is where adding an example might be better than just saying the same thing over and over. Did I write incomplete sentences? Remember, subject and verb. Gotta have those. Did I write in run-on sentences? If you could only find one period per paragraph, it's a run-on sentence, okay? Go back, shorten your sentences. We talked about how to do that, and make it easier to read, okay? Did you give specific details or are you really vague? This is the one area where people aren't really sure what to say sometimes. So they're just kind of very general, and it's pretty hard for me to tell whether you really understand the question, right? Like if it's talking about, hang on, being confident. Oh, I feel super confident in my ability to improve my literacy skills. Yeah, my skills are great. Oh, my skills are awesome. I love my skills. Okay, but you haven't told me anything specific, right? Okay, so for example, in reading, I read all the time and I'm very comfortable. I feel confident that I understand what I'm reading, and I believe that will carry over into the work I do here. That's a specific detail. Okay, so I'm looking for those kind of details to show me that you understand what we're talking about and that you really are going to be okay, right? All right, I think I've got one more thing. Okay, and again, always, always, always do your editing. Capitalization, look for that word I, and look for the first letter in a sentence. Usage, subject-verb agreement, misused or misunderstood words, sentence fragments or run-on sentences. Punctuation, the biggest thing I see is commas. Do not join 2 sentences with a comma. That's called a comma splice. If you're going to join 2 sentences, you have to add a coordinating conjunction. Like I can't just say, I was feeling sad, comma, I went home. I could say, I was feeling sad, comma, so I went home, right? But I have to have that conjunction. And then spelling, you can use spell check, but remember how we talked about some words can be spelled correctly, but might not be the right word in that sentence. If your computer has a grammar check, use that, okay? But just be aware that no computers are perfect. I spell check my stuff all the time and I still find spelling mistakes and grammar errors, okay? So it just happens. Make sure you've read it yourself. Don't rely on, well, the computer said it was okay, right? I'm not marking the computer, I'm marking us humans. So it's gotta be what you believe to be right. Okay. If you get this far, yay, celebrate. You are finished assignment 18. And that means you're finished assignment 1, or sorry, unit 1. At that point, most people I find, once they get to this spot, usually it just gets so much easier, right? You've kind of got some momentum, you've got some practice, you've got the idea of it. Usually, I feel really confident people that get to this spot are pretty good for being able to finish the whole course, okay? If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, be sure to call me and I would be happy to talk to you and help you out, all right? Tomorrow is Wednesday, and we will be there then.